All right, let's talk about Dark Side of the Ring. We haven't really revisited it since the Chris Benoit, who is a murderer episodes. Just important to put that out there for everybody. Murderer. But they've released what, New Jack and the Brawl for All. I've watched the New Jack episode. I've not seen the Brawl for All one yet. But the New Jack episode was pretty bananas, man. And I think the MVP of that episode was one of my favorite underrated WWF superstars of all time, D'Lo Brown, because his involvement in it was terrific. Him watching New Jack stabbing the guy on the laptop, like, instantly, like, became a meme online and everything. But what did you think of the New Jack episode?
Man, I did not know his full story, and so to hear all that, it was like, wow, no wonder the guy is the way he is. It's like, I don't know if he's ever got any sort of like professional help or like guidance or like, seeing like a therapist or something, but the guy has a lot of issues. And I mean, to his credit, he used that and applied that into his character and his gimmick and what fueled him.
To his credit or to his detriment and to the detriment of other people.
That too. But it's amazing the amount of stuff that he's been through. And like his early history, I didn't know anything about him pre-ECW. So to hear that, he came up in the Ohio Valley Wrestling under Jim Cornette, and how he used the whole O.J. Simpson trial to kind of help guide the character that he wanted to be, and using the hostility between races and stuff to really play into his character, with the gangsters, and just how he, back then in the 90s, there was still that blurred line of what's real and what's fake. Like kayfabe was still very much strong. So he was able to use real life situations, real life news and current events to play into his character and really get some huge heat wherever he went. So that was kind of, for me, fascinating to watch. It's just how kayfabe back then was such a huge tool in the wrestling world, and just how you can use that just to get over, good or bad, as a babyface or heel. And then it's just interesting to hear all the ECW stuff, and then some of the other stuff post ECW I didn't know too much about, because once WWE bought ECW, and whoever ECW guys from that roster who didn't come over or Vince didn't sign, I kind of just lost track of them, and he was one of them. And so to kind of hear what happened to him life after ECW was interesting. So, but man, that guy, he has a lot of just a lot of issues, and he applied it in the ring and just let it all out there. I'm blown away.
So I think the one of the things I took away from it was his time in Smoky Mountain. He would have probably been better served as a person to have just stayed in Smoky Mountain Wrestling, because I feel like he was a little bit more controlled there. It was a more sort of controlled environment for him, as opposed to when he went to ECW and the other stops where it just was this sort of more brutal, just violence. And the thing about it's these shows are fun to watch and everything, but I don't want us to become desensitized to the fact that he was doing some really messed up things. And one of the things about pro wrestling, what makes it work, is that when the wrestlers go in there, the other is trusting the other one with their body and their well-being. And when you do what he did, even if he wasn't trying to actually hurt them, which he was, but let's just say he was violating that trust so blatantly. He was violating these other human beings even before he hurt them with his intent there, and not taking care of them in the ring. So, the other thing that stood out to me, though, like in spite of the life and crimes of New Jack, was that in both this and Beyond the Mat, he comes off that he has a charisma about him that cannot be denied. And he's just a very interesting, enigmatic human being. But what did you think of the Brawl for All episode? I haven't seen it yet, but fill me in. I remember the Brawl for All, and I've heard people talk about it. So
I mean, Brawl for All, like, I remember that. That was 98. So I was middle school into high school year. No, was that high school? Anyway, doesn't matter. But so I was heavily watching that. It was all part of the Monday Night Wars era right there. So I was watching every week. So to watch something on this documentary show that I lived through and watched to kind of get like more of a history lesson on it. That was cool. And I didn't know all the facts. I just watched it as a kid and be like, oh, okay, they're doing these boxing matches. I didn't think they were that very good just because, as you know, my older brother Tommy's a huge boxing fan. And so growing up with him, I watched a lot of boxing. He boxed as well. So I learned about like techniques and how to box and watching all the matches that we did. So I would watch the guys on Raw do these Brawl for All matches. And I thought they were terrible. Like they're just swinging arms, their footwork was terrible. Like they just didn't know how to box, properly box. So I always thought it was kind of goofy. And they were just wailing, throwing arms, and hopefully one would connect and knock the other guy out. So they talked about that in the documentary, how these guys are not actual like boxers, fighters. So that's why these matches look kind of terrible. But I'm glad they brought Bart Gunn. Obviously, he won the thing and how he was the underdog. I did not know that the goal was the winner of the tournament was going to get a big push to challenge Stone Cold. And Dr. Death, Steve Williams, was their person that they were hoping was going to win. They wanted him to win. And it's interesting. They have this tournament and it's real. Like it's legit boxing.
Terrible idea because on a lot of levels to introduce looking at it from this aspect, I'm sure they went into this on the show, but maybe they didn't. But the fact that you are undermining the overall quality of your product and believability of your product by saying, hey, but this is actually real. Yes. And it's like just such a dumb idea. And yeah, I know Dr. Death was the presumptive one that they wanted to win. I don't know if they went into this on the show, but did they talk about how it was an effort also to get JBL to shut up about how tough he was? Okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And JBL did very well.
Yeah, he went to the finals.
Yeah.
So they do play clips from Bruce Pritchard's podcast on there. So I guess whatever reason they didn't have Bruce Pritchard actually do an updated interview. So they just took clips from his podcast talking about it. So that's in there as well. And so it's interesting. Like they wanted Dr. Death to win the whole thing. But obviously, since this was fighting, like legit fighting, they're just hoping that he can actually legit deliver on his end and make it to the finals. Unfortunately, he didn't. Like he hurt himself against Bart Gunn. Like he pulled some or ripped something, got injured, and Bart Gunn beat him, and then he was out of WWE or WWF at the time within a year. And even then, he was like out of his prime. He was more big in Japan back in the day. But it was just interesting to hear from the wrestlers, their perspective. These are all mostly like mid-card guys. All the top guys didn't want to participate. It was mostly also just very much Vince Russo versus Jim Cornette in this episode. How Vince Russo loved the idea. Jim Cornette thought it was stupid. They talked about how a lot of guys got hurt. So one, you're having these guys go out there, they're hurting themselves, and then they're off TV to heal. So you're hurting your roster. So you're losing guys to actually compete in actual matches afterwards. So this tournament is hurting your talent. And then, as you said, breaking the kayfabe thing as far as this is legit fighting and all the other stuff's not. And then the other thing too with Dr. Death, like they invested in him to be a big talent on their show, but it actually ruined his career, his WWF run. And even Draws, they do talk a lot about Draws in this as well, and how he got hurt at the end. D'Lo talked about it. It was very emotional to hear both of them talk about the situation. Jim Cornette, to his credit at the end, what he says about how there's always bad days in the office, and these are guys who are going out there putting their bodies on the line. You have to respect them for that.
But Draws didn't get paralyzed in the Brawl for All.
No, but they talked about afterwards, like Draws in the Brawl for All. Like that's the thing I was a little confusing by this episode. When the Brawl for All stuff was done, they spent a few extra minutes at the end talking about Draws and what happened to him afterwards. So really they were trying to tell Draws' story within this Brawl for All episode.
Okay.
So that's where I got a little confused. It's like, well, is this an episode about Brawl for All and Bart Gunn or Draws? So that's like a little second tier story that's in this episode for everyone that watched it already. But they're really trying to sell the point that, no matter what, Brawl for All or not, these guys go out there and put their bodies on the line, and you can have a bad day at the office and get really hurt. So no matter what, you got to respect these guys, gals, men and women going out there who, go out there to entertain us. But Bart Gunn, I don't know about you, Jimbo, and they talked about how, like, even though he won, he didn't really get a push, and not too soon after he was gone out of the company. Did you think he should have got a push or something, a singles run?
I think they did about everything they could do with Bart Gunn. You know, they put it. Listen, he was a victim of winning that thing because I think they got enamored. I don't think they fully understood that yes, he's a legitimately tough guy, but the idea that they put him in that prominent spot at WrestleMania 15 in the fight with Butterbean as a result of the Brawl for All. I don't think that I think they underestimated just how much like you have to live being a boxer. Like Bart Gunn is a tough guy, but he was not a boxer. Mm-hmm. Butterbean knocked people out for a living.
Absolutely, talk about that.
Yeah. I think WWE probably thought, like, oh, you know, maybe like even if he just hangs with them, you know, like, you know, maybe he could get lucky, you know, and like wouldn't that be great if Bart Gunn could win? I think if Bart Gunn beats Butterbean, I think maybe he does get a push. But he just, you know, he wasn't the most silver-tongued devil. I think they did about all they could with Bart Gunn.